Hi, my name is Beau Herman, and I'm a certified senior advisor with Assisted Living Locators of Central Florida.
When do families usually realize it's time to explore senior living?
Unfortunately, the times that they really start thinking about it is when it's too late. So we call it a life event. More times it's not, it's when somebody falls. So 70% of the times that people start looking, especially at assisted living, is after a fall, usually a hip break, an arm break, a shoulder break. That's when they realize that they need to start making plans for the future, unfortunately.
What warning signs should adult children watch for?
I think some of the things they should really look for is declining health, cognitive issues, repetition. In my experience, a lot of times it happens rather quickly, right? So adult children will come home over Christmas, they'll come home over Thanksgiving, and they realize mom and dad have changed. Whatever it is, whatever issues they were having have started to progress, and it was a lot worse than they remembered. And that's the way especially cognitive decline happens. It's slow at first and then accelerates. So people think this much decline happened over this period of time, then I can expect that same decline in the future, when in reality that's not true. It's compounding decline, actually, unfortunately.
What is the difference between independent living, assisted living, and memory care?
So, independent living is apartment style living where you pay one fixed monthly cost. You get room rent, 2 to 3 meals a day, electricity, water, cable, television, activities. It's just a place to live. You can still cook on your own. You can still drive. You can go everywhere. Some places will offer transportation. Most places offer transportation. Assisted living is a little bit more complex. It's for people that need assistance with their activities of daily living. Right. So there's two different components of assisted living. We have what's called room and board, and that's the same thing as independent living, but it includes housekeeping and laundry services. And then in assisted living, you also have level of care. So level of care is how much assistance somebody needs with activities of daily living. So we have 6, 7 ADLs, if you will. That's bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, transfer assistance, eating assistance, and in Florida we also have medication management. So when somebody needs help with those activities of daily living, that's usually when they go into assisted living. Now, memory care is a step beyond assisted living. So a lot of people believe that if a loved one has been diagnosed with dementia, any type of dementia, Alzheimer's, vascular, that they need to go to memory care, and that's not the case. I would estimate 60 to 70% of residents in assisted living have some type of dementia. It's when they get to the point that they become an elopement risk or a threat to themselves or to others, that's when they need to go to memory care. So memory care is a lot like assisted living, but it's a secured environment. So once a person has been deemed incompetent and unable to take care of themselves, that's when they go into memory care, and they cannot leave on their own cognizance. They have to have somebody remove them, family member take them out. They're not locked in there, but they can leave it when the family members would like to leave them. There's a higher caregiver to resident ratio, and it tends to be a little bit more expensive because there is more care in memory care.
And what surprises most families about senior communities today?
How nice they are. So a lot of people have this image in their head of senior living, right? When I was a kid, when I was a Boy Scout, we would go sing Christmas carols at the old folks' home, and you'd walk in there, and it was loud, it was smelly. There's people in hospital beds, and it was off-putting, and that's not what senior living looks like now. We call most of the senior living communities the cruise ships of the land. There's 3 meals a day, there's activities, there's medical care, right? So you really have no reason to leave unless you just really wanted to. So there are some places that are more like resort style living. Honestly, I wouldn't mind someone cooking 3 meals a day for me, doing my laundry, cleaning up after me. We have places with pool bars where you can eat wings and watch TV, and sign me up for that. I don't have to cut the grass. I don't need to, do all that. Well, my wife does most of that anyway, but.
What are common myths about assisted living?
Well, the first one is when I'm going we're talking to families and we're going through, the expenses and the cost of assisted living, we try to find out what resources are available. And more times than not, like, well, mom has Medicare. I'm like, well, great, right? Part A is going to pay for hospitalization. Part B is going to pay for doctor's appointments. Part D is going to pay for prescriptions or an Advantage plan. And they're completely surprised, that Medicare covers no part of that. Then they're surprised by the cost. The average cost of assisted living in the Central Florida area for a studio is $5,500. And most people think it's, $2,000, $2,500. So just the sheer cost of what senior living is usually pretty surprising to them.
And how do you help families narrow down the options?
So what I do is I work with clients. I do an assessment. I find out what the level of care needs are, find out what resources are available. I try to identify what resources we can go find, what location, what amenities are needed. We make recommendations, give them several options, try to narrow it down to the top 2 or 3. And then from there we go on tours. We see, what might be the right fit for a community. Then we'll bring mom and dad in, let them choose the top 2 they pick. And then, I'll help provide resources, people that can help with moving, packing, estate sales, real estate agents, financial planners, anybody that can help make that transition from the house into a senior living community easier.
What questions should families ask during tours?
Well, what's really important is, have you had any ACA? ACA is the accreditation agency that, enforces the rules and regulations in senior living communities. Do you have any ACA violations, or deficiency free? What is a caregiver to resident ratio? Do you check on your residents at night every 2 hours? Those are some of the basics. What can I expect for an annual increase, right? Because cost of food goes up, the cost of labor goes up, cost of electricity goes up, so you can expect the cost of senior living to go up. So, try to get a feel for what that's going to look like moving forward. That's the questions I would focus on.
And what mistakes do families make when waiting too long?
This happens to a lot of my clients. They make the mistake by waiting too long. They usually what happens is that life event, right? What I was talking about, mom falls, she breaks her hip, she breaks her arm, she goes to the hospital, she goes to rehab, she gets out, she feels better. We start looking and then they decide, it's not the right time. Mom's doing better. Let's go. Then she falls again, right? And then she falls a 3rd time. And we just keep going on the cycle of, how many times is mom going to fall before you decide that, laying on the ground isn't the best thing for her. I've had clients where they've been laying there for 3 days, soiled. Could you imagine just laying on the ground, watching the sun come up and the sun go down, the sun come up, the sun come down, the sun come up and the sun go down for 3 days? And then go to the hospital and go back and say, I'm going to stay here because that's my freedom. This is where I'm free. Well, it's like, no, we're not taking away your freedom. We're just giving you added security, right? And that's the one biggest mistake that people make is like, well, they're doing better today. Well, today they had a good day, but what about on their worst day, right? And a lot of people don't. A lot of families, because they don't want to go, right? We have what's called home attachment. The seniors want to stay in their house because that's where little Susie got, her christening, and Tommy got a BB gun under the Christmas tree, and that's where their memories are. That's their last things. And we try to get them to realize that their memories are important and they can take them with them, but you can create new memories and you can be safe and you can meet new friends and have new adventures. We're not trying to take the old away. We're just trying to enhance the new.
How important is location to family members?
It's pretty much the most important thing, I would think. Level of care is obviously the most important, but then location. If mom, dad is an hour away, the children aren't going to stop by to see them after work. If they're on the way home, they're going to be more likely to stop and see them. So location tends to be one of the biggest factors.
What advice would you give someone just starting the process?
Reach out for help. ask questions. I'm part of a larger network of people. Most of us don't charge anything for our services. None of my clients have ever paid me. None of them ever will. My goal is to be a resource for seniors and their families in the area, as long as they're safe and getting the care that they need. Right? I'll help direct them. I'll help guide them. If I can't help them, I'll point them in the direction of someone who can. But just reach out. It's overwhelming. It's a lot. In Orange and Seminole County alone, there's 165 licensed assisted living facilities with 4 different levels of licensure for care. So when you're trying to tell someone to find the right one for their loved one, it can be overwhelming, right? So, don't be afraid to ask. Don't go to a place for mom because they're not the local experts, right? Stick with the local experts, stick with the people that are here, that are in the community and know what's going on.
And a final question, if someone watching this is overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start, what would you tell them?
Well, depends on what they're overwhelmed about. They can reach out to me. Our website is all-cfl.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions about senior living. If I can't, I would reach out to my partners, other people in the network, in the group that could help them. Ask the right questions, right? Find someone that has the answers or can tell you what questions to ask. That's what we try to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being here today, Beau.
Thank you. I appreciate it.